I stand here now before the glowing embers of a dying garbage can fire, and I see in them a memory, the flames of judgment. I huddle for warmth along others like me, the wayward stragglers, all silent in mourning memory. For in a world with no future, what is there to do but remember? And so we recall each day the hour of our reckoning. We remember judgment in the beginning of the end. Our leaders had betrayed us. Their greed and arrogance withdrew them behind the walls of ivory towers and manors, havens from which they decided our fates and hoarded our wealth. And the cost of living surpassed the average income. When the lawmakers held themselves above their mandates, the illusion fell away. Placated indolence gave way to a storm of rage, and so it began. On the first day of unrest did the skies part, and all heard the voices of angels, and the heralding sound of golden trumpets, and he rode through in a yawning inferno for all to see, a great and dark champion astride a steed of flames and ash. He held at his side a shield of gold graven with the holy word, and he held aloft a burning sword of gilded silver, and in a voice like the battle cries of the ages, he declared unto the world of man,
I am the first of four. By his decree do I bring the light of strife to sunder the union of man. Thrones of all kings shall fall, crowns shall be cast before the Father, and so will every man and woman be stripped of title and honor. All shall be equal in battle, and the world will wash in blood and tears till naught remains of a single village. So it shall be, for I am called War.
for all the anger already in our hearts. The writer's clarion call stirred something primal, deep within our very nature. It came first as protests at the doors of corporate estates, then at the homes of their government authorities. Soon it dissolved into chaos and violence without direction, and the common man cast their stones upon the houses of the rich, and their torches to the strongholds of the powerful. Our world fell into an era of chaos and malcontent. Honest work abandoned, riots and looting for survival. The yen, the euro, the dollar, all burned, and with them fell the economy that tied us together. Martial law cracked at the seams when the pyramids of power fell, when their wealth became hollow and meaningless, and the guns of officers and soldiers turned on their masters. We burned the flags of our formal allegiance. The common citizen abandoned civility in favor of personal interest. Those who had never fought a war in their lives took up arms and dismantled the forms of political influence, united only beneath the black banner bereft of sovereignty. And so the legacy of human civilization dissolved in a hail of gunfire and the wrath of war, leaving behind nothing but irradiated wreckage and ash. And when the smoke cleared, the few of us left crawled from our shelters to the surface, and we found there a shell of the world we once knew. On the hour that the last of us emerged, we turned our eyes skyward, and the sky opened, and judgment came once more. From the rift again sounded the voices of angels and golden trumpets, and from the void came a harrowing swarm of flies. Amid the swarm came a frail and black steed, withering to its bones and shallow in its breath, and upon it rode a gaunt man with a mane of white. In his one slender hand he held a divine fruit rotten to its core, and from it wafted the airs of starvation. In his other he held a set of golden scales to weigh the thinning shares, and in his finest wisp of breath he declared unto the world of man.
I am the second of 4. By his decree do I bring the blight of hunger. From the loam shall no crop be raised, for your toil of hatred hath salted the earth. Not from the stalks of flesh shall you sustain, for the grass lay trampled and ruined. From what grain sown shall you never reap, for the golden harvest turns to dust on the winds of war. And ever shall the fair of your tamed lands and wilds be denied unto you. So it shall be, for I am called Famine.
With this second coming did the people despair, and we foraged for what little food may have weathered the war. All of nature had suffered the devastation of cannon fire, fallout, and debris, for we had been merciless to one another. Only in the farthest reaches from the blast zones, the lesser touched lands along the warpath, did we find the last left to sustain us. The great masses had found shelter, too, near where the bombs first struck. Most did not survive the trek through Ground Zero. Most succumbed to noxious radiation. They died whereupon they fell. Some succumbed to burden, to their waning needful and dying, and some took their own lives in their horror. What few remained found their prize at the cost of their health and living years, and for so little. We found only the few cans and containers left behind in raids, and the scarce remaining scraps from broken wards of the dead, and from the dying too weak to defend their keep. A scant find too seldom upon miles of empty road, and we took in secret, and we hoarded with lies to ration, and we let others starve that we may eat. When the old dwellings ran dry, we took of carrion and small diseased and wilting things, but our stomachs turned and rejected sour poisons, and yet more fell to their failing bodies, and we grew weak, we grew ill, and so we ushered in another era of the end. Upon a fateful hour did the sky open once more, and again our judgment rode forth. Again sounded the voices of angels and golden trumpets, and from the void exhumed the ash of the burning dead and the foul stench of decay. From the acrid cloud rode a white horse, patched in the reds and greens of dying flesh. Its eyes clouded in ailment, and its teeth blackened from rot, and upon it rode an infirm cadaver, stricken with the boils and lesions of disease. In his hands he held the wafting flames of a cleansing pyre, and in a wheezing rasp he declared unto the world of man,
I am the third of 4. By his decree do I bring the blight of illness. The filth of your careless abandon shall be upon you. The last moving things of the earth shall bring your poisons unto you from their burrows, and they shall be as the venom of the blood. And the tainted air's rotten battle shall pierce the flesh and make fast upon your bones. The breath of life shall be the dust of the plague, and all shall fester with the sickness till the end of days. So it shall be, for I am called Pestilence.
that hour marked our descent into profound and all-encompassing plague. There were no troves of food left to us, and none had the strength left to search. We had settled for nearby rats and insects, and only those our constitutions could withstand. When even those grow too few, more and more resorted to cannibalism, not a bite without disease, but for longing to settle the twisting pain in our stomachs. When the sickness came for us, it was our children and elders who went first. Some were lost to the desperation of the hungry, but most were taken by the fever, though it wasn't long before we envied them, for their deaths were swift and merciful compared to the agony soon to come. Soon, it was we who suffered the most. The dead passed through the stomachs of the living, and through those yet living did the infection grow stronger and violent. The fever took hold with a ceaseless itch and a seething burn. Then came the sores and pustules, boils, and a stench of necrosis. And the infection twisted and spoiled the flesh, and even the most perverse of meals turned unfit to eat. The ferocious plague claimed the lives of many, and confined yet more to their beds, and few survived. The whole of the world of man fell into decay, so that few were left but the strongest of the young, and for those remaining came the last portent of our judgment. Again did the sky fall open to the void, and again came the sound of singing angels and golden trumpets. From the void stormed forth the dark legions of hell and fallen angels, and they did scream and wail their sorrow, and ahead of them rode a pale horse, skinless in face and naked of teeth, and its breath was the white mist of the ether. Upon it sat the Reaper himself, veiled in black robes and charred feathers molted from his broken wings. In his one hand did he hold a scythe to harvest the souls of man, and in his other the hourglass of all time. And the sands had since passed, and in a voice whispered from graves and shadows, this he declared unto the world of man.
I am the last of four. By his decree do I bring the blight of your final passing. So shall the consequence of your transgression be cast upon you in your final years. Every womb shall be barren, every seed hollow of its essence. The meager few shall vanish to their last, and lordship over all the earth shall be taken forever. And from each of the fallen shall their souls be given unto Azrael, and in his hands shall each be delivered to their final rites. So it shall be, for I am called Death.
And just as the 3 horsemen before him, he was true to his word, for not a single child has been born to the healthiest of us in over 30 years. We have all since grown old and feeble, and another of us falls each day, whisked away to the hereafter by the archangel of death. Among the sickness and our tainted meals, I can only assume that we've survived so long that we might reflect on our sins. I can only assume we have been left to learn some divine lesson. I huddle now beside others like me, near the warmth of the garbage can fire. There are fewer here today than yesterday, fewer still than a week ago, and I believe this last chapter may be nearing its end. As I see friends and family pass on, I feel myself losing feeling for my loss. I move ever closer to acceptance, and I feel it in my heart now. My time nears too. Perhaps tomorrow, some other in my place may recant the story so often told. Perhaps some other may tell our final tale to the sullen faces around this fire, and the rest shall remember it to the end of their days. For in a world without a future, what is there to do but remember?